Hello everyone, my name is Inaya Chahya with the last student ID ends with 0, 1 and 3, and as you know I'm from 4A. So guys, for this assignment I have read around 10 academics articles. Yes, 10. And honestly, after I read that article, some of them were really eye-opening, and then some of them were really kind of surprising me. And actually there's one of them that made me rethink. I made me rethink something I always assume I true when I'm teaching. And in this video I'm going walk you through all of the 10, what each article about, and then what I think is great about it, and then what I think missing about that article. And then at the end of this video I will share to you how all this article connect each other. I mean, what a correlation between them. So I organized the 10 article into 3 groups. I divided. The first one is about teaching methodology and technology, and the second is about speaking skill. The third is about reading. Okay, now let's move into the first article. This article by Al-Ghazab, guys. This article published in 2022. So the title is Reality of Using Modern Teaching Method in Teaching English Language Subject. So what is article about? So guys, the researcher want to find out, are English teacher actually using modern teaching method in their classroom? And to find the answer, he used 3 ways to collect data. The first one is about questionnaire, and then the second, they use classroom observation, and also the third is they use, interview. Yes. And the result of that research, teachers are actually using modern method very little. Why? Because of 4 main problems. The first one is negative mindset, guys. So some teachers don't believe the new methods work. The second is because lack of training. So teachers were never taught how to use this method. And the third is large class size. It's hard to apply a new strategies when you have around 40 students, like in Indonesia, as you know. And the fourth is because time constraints. Modern method take more time, guys, to plan and exercise. So why is this useful for as an English education? Why this article useful? I think this article help us understand the real challenge teacher face. So when we become a teacher, we won't be shocked. We already know what barriers exist and we can prepare to overcome them. And what's wrong about this article? The researcher actually went into real classroom, right? So it makes the data very authentic and honest. And also there is a lack of this article. What is missing from this article? I guess this article tells us what the problem are, but it doesn't give solution. It also only look at one specific context, so we cannot be sure the finding apply everywhere. That's it. Okay, now let's talk into the second article. It's still in batch 1. Article 2 is by Zhang. I don't know how to pronounce it. I think Zhang. Okay, this article published in 2025. The title is, I forgot what is the title. The title is Best Teaching Method in English Teaching from the Perspective of Big Data. This one is really interesting, guys, because it combines 2 things: a teaching method called Test-Based Language Teaching, or we know as TBLT, and the big data analytics. So what is TBLT? As you know, it's a method where students learn English by doing real tasks, like completing a project, solving a problem, and then having a real conversation instead of just memorizing grammar rules. And what does big data have to do with it? In the study, the researcher used data analytics to track how students are learning, which tasks work, which done, and how to personalize instruction for each student. The findings show that when you combine TBLT, guys, with data insight, students become more motivated and their language skill improve more effectively. And why is this article useful for us? As future teachers, we will be entering a world where technology is everywhere, right? So this article shows us that if we know how to use data, we can make our lessons smarter and more responsive to what each student actually needs. And what's wrong in this article? What is strength? This article have the combination of TBLT, test-based language teaching, and data analytics. It's very innovative, guys, and I guess it's like forward thinking. And what is lack of this article? This article is quite theoretical. It doesn't show enough real-world example in diverse classroom. It also doesn't discuss important issues like data privacy or whether schools actually have the technology needed to implement this. Alright, now we move into the third article. The third article is article by Inanch. It's published in 2021. The title is Meta-Evaluation of Research in the Usage of Gamification Methods in English Language Teaching. Okay, first of all, what does gamification mean? Do you know, guys? Gamification means bringing game elements into the classroom. Things like points, badge, or leaderboard. So learning feels more like a game. Like we not learn, we just are playing a game, but they learn while they play that game. And this article is a meta-evaluation, which means the researcher didn't conduct one study. Instead, they look at 15 different studies on gamification in English teaching and combine all the results together. That is meta-evaluation, guys. So what did they find from these studies, their research? That gamification has a moderate positive impact on things like student motivation, vocabulary learning, grammar, and even speaking skills. The effect size, a number called cohents, which in research mean a meaningful, noticeable positive effect. Why is this useful for us? Do you confused or do you curious? Why is this useful for us? So guys, when we teach, especially in Indonesia, one of the biggest challenges is keeping students motivated, keeping student interest. So this article gives us evidence-based proof that gamification can help us. So we can confidently use games and game-like activities in our future classroom. What is the strength of this article? So in this article, the research method is rigorous. They're using effect size and special charts to check for bias, makes it very credible, I guess. And what is missing from this article? This article only used 50 studies, right? So these 50 studies were included because the criteria were very strict. Also, most studies were from Western context. So we need to think about how to adapt gamification for Indonesian student and culture. That's the end of batch 1. Let's now move to batch 2, which is all about speaking skills. Now we're gonna talk about article 4. So guys, now raise your hand if you have experience on online learning. I guess all of you have, right? So article 4 is actually about that experience from the teacher's perspective. So this article is by Vindiasari and then Ivone and also Wijayati. This article published on 2022, so right after the pandemic peak. They sat in on speaking class being held via Google Meet and just observe that. What are students doing, what is the teacher doing, and how is interact actually happening. And one thing they found that I thought was really interesting because when online learning, students were using the chat box almost as much as their voice, guys. So some students who were too nervous to speak up, they unmute and then they participate through the chat box. And the teacher was managing both channels at the same time, responding to verbal answer and reading the chat. We should be multitasking on online learning classroom. It's a completely different skill set from face-to-face teaching, and this article documents all of that in detail, like real transcript from actual class session. And why this article is useful? Because at a first look at the dynamic of online speaking class, it's genuinely useful, especially for us because we will definitely teaching online sometime. But this article have a lack. Of course, there's missing from this article because this article cannot tell us whether this is true everywhere because it was just one class at one university, guys. So that's about article 4. Now let's move into article 5. This one is by Kriya Sinira and Mandasari, 2022, and the idea is so simple. I kinda love it. They talk about small group discussion when we speaking. That's it. That's the strategy. Here's the logic, guys. In a class of 30 students, if the teacher asks a question, one person answer, maybe 2 if there's time. But if you break that some class into group of 5, suddenly everyone is talking at the same time, right? In their own group. basic conversation happening simultaneously. Every student is getting real speaking practice. And there's another benefit that I think gets underrated. It's less scary. Speaking in front of 30 people, it really stressful, right? It's really make the student got a pressure, talking under pressure. But when you're speaking in front of 4 of your classmates who you are already comfortable with, it's real more manageable, I guess. So students actually open up more, try more, making more mistakes, and that's exactly how language learning happens. I love this article because there's no special technology needed, no budget required. You can do this in any classroom, in any school, starting tomorrow. And the one thing it's missing in this article is about comparison, like how does small group discussion do compared to other methods. But as a standalone strategy, the evidence is solid and it's very easy to apply. That is about Article 5. Now let's talk about Article 6. It's still about speaking. Article 6 is by Sukamardojo. It's published on 2022. The study compared 2 groups of students, guys. Both groups use technology in their English lessons, but the way they use it was different. Group 1, technology plus discussion. So students use the tools but also talk to each other, collaborate, debate. But group 2, they use technology plus lecture. So students watch and listen while the teacher presents. Same technology but completely different results, guys. Why? Group 1, the discussion group, was significantly better at speaking by the end. And I think that's the main lesson from this article, and honestly, it's one of the most important things I learned from this whole bibliography. It's not about whether you use technology, it is about how you use it. Technology in a passive classroom is basically just a fancier chalkboard, but technology in an active, discussion-based classroom, that's when things actually click. The limitation in this study is this study was done with maritime vocational students, a pretty specific group, so we want to see more studies across different school types before we can generalize too confidently. But the core message, super clear and super useful. That's the strength of this article. So yeah, that is the page 2 of my article. Now let's move into batch 3. This is the reading batch, and I promise at least one article here will actually surprise you. Okay everyone, now let's talk about the next article in the batch 3, the last batch. So, Article 7 by Liu and Saad, guys, published in 2025. The title is Role of Extensive Reading in Vocabulary Development, Reading Comprehension, and Reading Speed. So, what is extensive reading? Do you know? Can you answer? Okay, you all know. So extensive reading, it means reading a large amount of text. Usually it's text that we can choose by ourselves in a relaxed, low-pressure environment. It's different from intensive reading that we focus on analyze each word. So this article is a systematic literature review, meaning the researcher collect and analyze 10 high-quality studies on extensive reading published between 2014 until 2024. So they follow a careful framework called PRISMA, guys, to make sure only high quality, only best studies that were included on their research. Then what did they find? They find that extensive reading helps students on building vocabulary naturally and then understand text better, and then it helps on reading speed students. The key insight is that when students read things they choose and find interesting, they're more relaxed and language learning happens almost automatically. So why this article is useful for us? Because this gives us strong evidence to build an extensive reading program in our future classroom. Even something as simple as letting students read books, articles, or websites of their choice can have a big impact, guys. And what is missing from this article? This is a secondary study, guys, so it's review other studies, not a lived classroom. Also, it doesn't discuss the practical challenge of implement such a program in resource, limited schools, like that. Now that's all about Article 7. Article 7, yes. And now let's move into Article 8. Yeah, the next article is by Wan Nouruddin and others, published in 2026, which is this year. The title is Influence of Alternative Parenting, Reading Attitude and Early Literacy on Reading Comprehension. So guys, this article might surprise you a little because it's really surprised me. Why it will surprise you? Because it tells us that reading ability doesn't just come from school. It's also start at home. The researcher survey in Malaysia, they use a method called structural equation modeling, I guess, a statistical technique that show how different factors connect and influence each other. Here's what they found. They found that the biggest predictor of a child's reading comprehension was early literacy activities at home. The second, they found assertive parenting, meaning parents who are warm but also set clear rules also had a positive effect on reading. And the last is positive reading attitude. Actually, liking to read also matter a lot, right? And it built from their home. Why is this useful for us as a future teachers, guys? We often think that our jobs start when the children walk into the classroom, right? But this article reminds us that we also need to involve the parents. We can organize parents workshop. We can send home reading tips, or maybe we can create literacy at home program. So what is missing from this study? This study only look at on one region, guys, which is Malaysia, and only at year 5 students. So result might be different in other places or age group. Maybe different in Indonesia, different in Thailand, etc. That is the lack of this article. Now let's move into the next article, Article 9. This article is by Dahia, guys, Dahia Belbaka and Yoti, published in 2026. The title is Reading Relevance, the Role of LLM in Developing EFL Learner. Okay, so LMS stands for Large Language Models. Basically, it's like AI tools like ChatGPT, Cloud, or maybe Perplexity. This article is about how AI can be used to help students read better in English. So the researchers surveyed 38 English teachers in Morocco and found that 97% of them were already using AI tools, which is a huge number, right? This shows that AI in teaching is no longer the future, guys, but it's present right now. The most exciting part in this article is this researcher introduced a framework called AI-driven reading circle. Yes, like AIDRC. The idea is this: in any English class, you have students at different reading level. Instead of giving everyone the same text, the teacher used AI to generate different text on the same topic. One simpler version, one medium version, one advanced version. So every student is reading about the same topic but at difficulty level that's right for them. This is called differentiated instruction, and it's very powerful, guys, because no student feel pressure, no student feel left behind or bored when they're reading. Why is this useful for us? We are going to be 21st century teachers, so knowing how to use AI as a teaching tools, not just for ourselves but for our children, guys, is a real skill we need to develop now. And what is missing? The sample was very small, only 38 teachers on Morocco in one region, right? And the framework has never been tested in ASEAN EFL classroom like Indonesia, so we don't yet know how well it will work here. And now let's move into the last article. The last article is by Fahrizal and others, published in 2025. The title is Metacognitive Reading Strategies and Their Impact on Comprehension Rural EFL Learner. First, let me explain. Metacognitive reading strategies are mental tools you use while reading to help yourself understand better. For example, you setting a goal, checking your own understanding while reading, reread when you're confused, like that. The study was done at IAIN Kerinci, which is in Jambi. a university in rural Indonesia with 100 students. So the researcher used validated questionnaires called Marcy, guys, to measure how often students use this strategy. Now here, the surprising finding. The student did use metacognitive strategy, guys, but it only explained 3% of their reading comprehension. That's very small, right? What does that mean? It means that teaching students about reading strategy is important, but it's not enough on its own. Students also need good vocabulary and strong motivation to become better teachers, better readers. Why is this useful for us? We might assume that if we just teach students to use reading strategies, their comprehension will improve. But the study warned us that we need to tackle multiple things at once: strategies, vocabulary, and also motivation together. What is strong from this article? This study represents rural Indonesia EFL learner, which is very relevant to our own context, right? It also uses a well-validated research instrument. And what is missing? The study was conducted at only one institution, and it cannot tell us about cause and effect, only correlation. Okay, that's all about the article. We already covered all 10 articles. Now let's go to the final slide. Ding, ding. Okay, now looking at all articles together, how do they connect? Guys, first, teaching method and technology. This article taught us that modern teaching methods are important, but they're often not being used because of mindset, training, and resources. They also show me that technology is only effective when paired with active student participation, not passive listening. Second, speaking class design. These three articles directly shape how we want to design speaking lesson in the future. Use teaching methods, right? More student talk time, small group discussion, and technology that support conversation, not just content delivery. Third is about reading instruction design. I now know that good reading instruction must combine extensive reading, home literacy support, AI-assist differentiation, and metacognitive strategies. Along with vocabulary development and motivational support, none of this alone is enough. The fourth is research literacy. By reading articles that use very different research methods, survey, experiments, case study, meta-analysis, and systematic review, I've also grown as a researcher, guys. I can now read academic articles more critically and use evidence to inform my own teaching decisions. To close, this 10 articles together give me a map, I guess, a map of what effective English teaching looks like, what challenge exists, and how I, as a future teacher, can navigate my way toward becoming an educator would truly make a difference. And yeah, thank you so much for listening. I hope this video was helpful and easy to follow. And yeah, see you.